Cheryl, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the time is 6:30. I call the regular meeting of the Milliken Board of Trustees for August 26, 2020 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will Acting Town Clerk please call roll?
Trustee Wakeman,
Here.
Trustee Smith,
Here.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Here.
Trustee Granquist,
Here.
Trustee Trailer,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Here.
and Mayor Austin.
Here. Thank you. Does anyone have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we'd like to add an executive session pursuant to section 24-6-4024E of the Colorado Revised Statutes for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and instructing negotiators with respect to the contract with Mr. Tim Singwald. Add that down here at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a second?
Second it.
Second.
Acting Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Granquist,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Here, yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens' comments? We do? Okay, citizens' comment is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the town board on any items except agenda items for which there is a public hearing. Public comment on public hearing items will occur during the scheduled public hearing. All comments should be directed to the board. There is a 3-minute limit per speaker. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Linda Wiesner, 108 North Norma Avenue, Milliken. The reason I wanted to say something, last meeting there was a discussion on excess residential water usage. Now this has been ongoing. When I was mayor back in 2001, this was a subject for discussion at the time. There were a certain number of residents who were using more than their allotted amount. Now I did some figuring. According to Wade, there is an overage of 4.9 million gallons of water, or 15 acre-feet over the allotted amount. Now there's 125 residents that are using that amount. Now each resident is allotted, according to the schedule, 170,000 gallons. Now you take that number of overage and you figure it per the number of people that there are that are overusing, and that comes out to 209,200 gallons over. That's how much they're using. At the cost of CBT water at the moment, which is $39,000, I looked it up, that is $555,000 a year of overage. And this has been ongoing. If you go back and look at the bills from way back when, you'll find that these same residents are the ones who are using the water. And I think it's unfair for the people of Milliken who don't use that kind of water to have to pay for the water usage of these people. If they can afford to use that kind of water a month, they sure as heck can afford to pay for the extra water.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll take that under consideration. Any other comments? Okay. Citizens' comment is now closed, and we will move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any discussion or comments on the meeting minutes of August 12th, 2020? Any corrections? I'll take a motion.
I move to approve August 12th, 2020 meeting minutes.
Second.
Acting Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Granquist,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Trailer. Yes. Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
and Mayor Austin.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the paid list of bills?
I have two.
Yes, Trustee Trustee Rodriguez.
My first question is Byte Speed Computers for $1,945 for replacement desktop computer for the town board. Do we know what that was for?
So we needed to replace, actually, this computer right here, we needed to replace that, and so that's what that expense was for.
Okay. And then my only other second question is with regard to Zoom. It looks like we pay a monthly subscription for that, is that correct? Okay. So if so, that's $189.48 a year annually if we're going to continue to use Zoom. Has anybody thought about or looked into doing an annual subscription?
We just switched this.
You did? Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, the Town of Milliken and the Board of Trustees would like to extend our condolences to Cheryl Powell for the passing of her father, Harold Strunk, and have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to the Town Administrator's report. Interim Town Administrator Powell.
Yes, and thank you for that as well. So water, wastewater, and you have to excuse me, I haven't been here that much for the last week and a half, so all these guys have been out there working very hard and supplying me with some information as to what's been occurring, projects completing and so on. The RO plant's anticipated operation is the first week of September. Right now, they just, if I'm correct, they just reseeded the RO plant. So that will be up and operating the first week of September. Thank you. And Don is still wanting to know if anybody's interested in scheduling a tour of the RO plant within the next few weeks. If you want to either email me or Tammy or Don himself and get something scheduled and get you out there so you can see it. He can tell you how it operates. Streets Department, the V Hill Drainage Project is completed. They completed the cleanup and material removal of County Road 46 that was west of Hunting down to 19. They're continuing with alley repairs. During the week of September 3rd, they will be conducting drain pan and gutter repairs in Juneberry, Settlers, and Colony Point in preparation of asphalt patching. There's been complaints of excessive dust on North Alice, and I'm sure a lot of it's due to all the dry weather we've had and high heat. So we will be putting down a dust suppressant the week or on September 8th. In the Parks Department, if you noticed at either end of Town Hall, we've replaced the dead spruce trees with oak trees. So that was completed last week by the Parks Department. They are completing the native grass mowing around Centennial Lake, Ehrlich Lake, and the South Open Space. That's going to be a weekly mowing operation. Is that correct, Keith?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly.
Leaves are starting to slow down now, so.
Okay. Ehrlich Lake sprinklers are running. Keith found that there was a problem between the breaker and the aerator. When the aerator is running, it was creating a short in the wire, so the wire and for the sprinkling system for the timer. So he's going to be replacing that this next week, the line there. They're working on the south and west side of Town Hall, installing a drip system. They were all out there working very hard and getting very dirty today in this heat, and that will be controlled by a timer at the Heritage House. They'll be scheduling joint work sessions with the Planning Commission to start reviewing the draft of the updated land use code. So stay tuned for that. Pepper will reach out to everyone and we'll try to get that accomplished. We'd like to have it done by October, beginning of October, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, ma'am.
Will our draft copy be out at least 2 weeks in advance so we can start reading it before we get into the meeting with the Planning Commission?
We'll have to ask.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ann reminded me we need to discuss the Hillsborough post office, the building on the property that she's going to be selling. So maybe perhaps the next work session, we can begin discussion on that and move forward one way or the other in regards to that building. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. Thank you. Trustee Wakeman has a question. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
It was nice to see that the sidewalks were completed on the railroad right-of-way,
Yes.
but I'm wondering why the sidewalk was not continued on the east side on Alice Avenue, just behind the mall. Do we
I
know?
actually can answer that
Yeah.
one for you.
Okay.
I was on the board when that project came up because it was Ken Kidd. Come on up, Pepper. Ken Kidd started that project back, what was it, 2014, I think. And we could only do 3. The west side was chosen because that's where the bus stop is. And the children coming over from Aragon Court need to be able to get over there. So that was chosen in favor of the east side of Alice. And Pepper and I had just discussed that the other day because she wondered the same thing.
And Mayor and trustees, that's actually going to be in the presentation here a little bit later, but
Mhm.
Mayor's correct, it was not included in the project. It was one of the 3 crossings that were selected, so.
Thank you. Are we pursuing that?
Well, yeah, in today's meeting, it's going to be coming up
Okay,
this afternoon.
okay. I'll just be quiet.
No, you don't have to be quiet. It's a good question because it's something else that needs to happen. Any other questions? Okay. Nothing on the consent agenda, so moving on to the action agenda. Our first item is consideration and approval of Resolution 2020, Milliken Waterworks Pool. Matthew Gould, Town Attorney.
Yes, this is the matter that's been before the board a few times over the last couple of months. This is the transfer of the Milliken Pool to Thompson Rivers Parks and Recreation District. During the work session, we discussed a few changes that it sounds like the board is interested in making to the contract. They're fairly minor, and if we get a motion, it can be subject to revisions that I will read into the record. So I guess there's an image of the property provided, a vicinity map that you can look at. I'm happy to answer any questions, and so that's the matter that's before you. This is in the form of a resolution which not only approves the contract, subject to the revisions we'll make, but also the ballot language, which we will also revise slightly, and authorizes the acting town administrator to sign the contract.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board, starting with Trustee Granquist,
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
No questions.
Trustee Wakeman?
I just have a comment that I believe that the discussion that we had tonight should have happened at the beginning of this process rather than at the time that we're discussing it now, because had it been that the board would have been more involved in the discussion preparation of this, I think it would have been beneficial for us to have talked about some of the things that we talked tonight earlier on.
Trustee Smith?
I have nothing.
Trustee Rodriguez?
I have no questions.
Trustee Trailer?
I have a question.
Yes.
I thought of it after we discussed it, but going back to the map. Okay, so the thin yellow lines above the area we're talking about, TRPR owns that? Like where the school district building is, or who owns that area?
So the school district owns the square above the kind of odd-shaped parcel that we're talking about. TRPR doesn't own anything, to my knowledge.
Okay, so my question is, because we talked about who's maintaining that trail. So does the school district maintain that trail, or I believe we do in the school district part?
My understanding is that the town maintains the trail.
Okay, so that should just be the same throughout, because I couldn't hear very well during the work session, so I just wanted to make sure it's the same, right? That the town takes care of the entire trail?
That is my understanding, correct.
Okay. All right, one more question.
Sure.
And I remember, he said something about he would do the lawn and the weed whacking, right?
Yes.
But do we do the lawn in the school district area? Or do they do it?
No.
Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer, but it sounds like I'm hearing that no, we don't take care of the lawn in the school district area.
Who has Brightview taking care of their property?
I'm sorry, what did he say?
Keith will let you know in just a second.
Keith is going to come up and address that.
Yeah, the school has Brightview. They stepped Brightview out to do all their maintenance on the schools, all three of them.
I don't think that matters.
I don't either. That's not my code.
Can you hear me?
Did you say the school does it or you do it? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
The school does it.
Okay.
Yeah, they have Brightview.
I just want
They
to make
step
sure
there.
it's fair on both sides. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll take a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2020 with Matt reading in the changes and adopt it with the changes that'll be read in.
And these, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Allowing the interim town administrator to sign.
I'm going to recommend that you read do you have the printed resolution in front of you?
Yeah?
I'd recommend you read that whole thing by title, just to be thorough here.
So, Town of Milliken Resolution number 20-20, a resolution of the Town of Milliken, Colorado approving a contract for transfer of real property, delegating authority to sign the contract and closing documents, and approving related ballot language for the submission of the voters. Whereas the Board of Trustees for the Town of Milliken desires to transfer the Thompson River Parks and Recreation District certain real property described in...
I'm sorry, you don't need to read the whole resolution. I just wanted the title read.
Okay.
So we're good. And I'm going to read the revisions
Gotcha.
in at this point.
Okay.
Number 1, Exhibit B to the sales contract shall be revised to reserve a right of entry to the town instead of a possibility of reverter. Number 2, Exhibit B to the resolution shall be revised by deleting the words "and solely." Number 3, Exhibit B to the resolution shall be revised to reflect that the town will reserve a right of entry instead of a possibility of reverter. And those are all the changes to the contract and the ballot language.
I'll second the motion.
Acting Town Clerk, please call a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Grandquist,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
and Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
And could I add something for the record? I think it's our desire that, just put it in the notes, that's our desire that they keep Milliken in the name, just for the record.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement for conduct of community development block grant program with Weld County. Matthew Gould, Town Attorney.
Yes, this is an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement that the board approved a few weeks ago. Let me just read an excerpt from comments of Don Sandoval when he sent us this amendment. He said, I received communications from HUD this week that they need us to amend our CDBG IGA with the municipalities. He's speaking for the county here. The changes they want are not substantial changes to the agreement. They want us to use some specific wording that their legal team prefers to use. I did review it, and my comments are in the agenda memo. I agree with his assessment that these are essentially clarifying adjustments, and I don't see a problem, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Opening it for discussion with the board. Trustee Rodriguez,
I have no comment or questions.
Trustee Smith,
No questions.
Trustee Wakeman,
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Trailer. Any questions? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
No questions.
Trustee Grandquist.
I had one question I'm having a hard time finding, but somewhere I had read that there was some code modifications because of the HUD tie-in. I'm not finding it here on the moment. I had it up on the iPad or on the tablet earlier, but I don't know if you're familiar with that. There was a recommendation for change, and there was some kind of a code alignment. I don't know. I'm not finding it now. So.
I'm not sure. The only two changes to my eyes, well, really just one, there was the addition of a reference to an ESG program, which is referring to Emergency Solutions Grants Program funds. I believe that relates to funds that are used for homeless assistance, and I'm no expert. That was my quick assessment. That was the only thing I saw that was really anything other than a language clarification. There was a change to a legal citation in Section 6, if that was the code you were referring to, but otherwise I'm not sure what you're thinking about.
Okay. That part I can't find. The other question of mine was on page 5 of 9 of, what is this document? Milliken HUD IGA, the original. Let me get back there now, I just panned up. The excessive force, letter J, goes into municipality has adopted and is enforcing policy prohibiting the excessive use of force by law enforcement agencies, etc. And number 2 there, enforcing applicable state and local laws against physically barring entrance to or exit from a facility or location. Seems a little concerning there.
Well, I had
Not
asked
sure.
about that in the very
Okay.
beginning and had discussed it. It's standardized language, basically.
Uh-huh.
And our police department already abides by an excessive
Okay.
force.
So that's congruent with our existing excessive use of force. I'm trying to, because excessive use of force seemed a little bit ambiguous, and I want to make sure that there's a natural congruency with what is already being practiced, and this is not an additional requirement that's being imposed upon us.
Yeah, it's not an issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the amended intergovernmental agreement for conduct of the Community Development Block Grant Program with Weld County.
Acting Town Clerk, please call a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Grandquist,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
and Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Next item is we have a Planning Commission applicant, Mr. Robert Carnahan, who has previously served on several boards for the town. And we have his application and his resume in our packets. Is there any additional information you would like to provide, Cheryl Powell?
I don't have anything, but I do, Bob Carnahan is here, so if you have any questions of the applicant, I'm sure you'd be happy to answer them.
Does the board have any questions as his wife laughs?
None for me.
Okay, well, I will say that some of us are familiar with Bob Carnahan. He did serve previously on the Board of Trustees. He was active in the Keep Milliken Beautiful committee and has been quite active in our community. Has assisted when we had the Milliken Business Association with some of their events, and has assisted with Beef and Bean Day on occasion. So a great asset to our community. If there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion.
I motion to accept his application and appoint him as a planning commissioner.
Second.
Acting Town Clerk, please call up for a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Grandquist,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
and Mayor Austin.
Yes. I reserved judgment, as you probably heard. We've got the land use code coming up, so welcome to the Planning Commission. It's about this thick, the revisions. There you go, good timing.
I got one quick question for Matt. Is a planning commission appointment considered an appointed official position?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so. Yeah. I guess I'd ask in what context?
Well, I just, like us, we're elected officials.
Right, so it'd be appointed as
So
opposed
we're
to
appointing
elected.
somebody, is considered the title as a commission member?
Well,
appointed
sitting here, I
official,
believe so, yeah.
Or a planning commission member?
I mean, I believe it is an appointed position. Yes, I believe it is.
Okay. Just
And
curious.
And he'll be sworn in at the planning commission meeting, so, and they have the same terms as you do with their appointment, as you do as an elected official.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Okay. That concludes all the actionable items. Now we move on to the information agenda. We have an Ehrlich Lake Park presentation. It is a joint effort between Pepper McClanahan, our Community Development Director, Keith Staggs, Parks Director, and Scott Clem, our Public Works Director.
Okay. Mayor and trustees, we were asked as staff to put together some information for Colony Point and Ehrlich Lake, open space and park. And so I'm mostly going to be running the PowerPoint. And first up is Keith to talk about outlot C and D.
Try hitting F11. No.
Sorry. So you can see here outlot C is right here, outlot D is here. I wonder why this is not going this way. There we go. That's a little better.
So outlot D, we talked about grading that all out, doing a soil prep, vegetation control, and seeding it.
Oops. Maybe we started with, I think we started with.
Oh, started with C, my bad. So C was the moving the playground. We would have to get with the playground guys and see if that's even doable, if that is still in code. Thank you. Yeah, to see if that's even movable. It's quite a bit to it. I don't know if we move it, if it's still usable, because you have to pull the posts out. At the very least, you might have to replace the bars that anchor into the ground. The restroom, we did Greeley lock and key, finally got out, and we replaced the lock in that thing. So we took a pressure washer to it and some simple green, and I think we took care of our little issue there.
Okay, on a regular basis, it seems like either sewer gases back up, or is it just dirty? Why?
No, I believe the P-traps in the sink and in the floor drain and the toilet all dried up, and you're getting the gases come up instead of venting the way they should.
And how do we prevent that from happening?
Yeah, with the COVID this year, we didn't open up the toilets or the restrooms, so we haven't been in them as much. So that'll change. We'll continue to maintain those.
Okay, because the smell nearly took me off my bicycle.
Well, I'm glad it didn't.
Okay. Thank you.
This is your outlot D.
This is the outlot D that we talked about. Yeah, a lot of grade work, a lot of vegetation control. With the native seed, I don't see the need for irrigation, maybe a temporary above ground just to get the germination going. But that could go either way. We could either do it or not. We do have the water close by.
I think that's.
Are we going to put trees and bushes in that area?
Yeah, we do. If we do trees and bushes in there, we'll have to run drip irrigation. It'll be a permanent deal.
So if we're going to ask for assistance from the Metro District, we should probably ask for everything that we want, as much as possible, and they can always come down.
Oh yeah, I would start high.
Start high. That's including the breeze for where the, it looks like a road, a dirt road. Can that be made into a breeze?
Yeah, that could be graded down and made into a crusher fine path real easy to match the trail going around the lake. Yes.
So I think it would probably be good to go high, ask for it all. What does the rest of the board think?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, no issues. Thank you. So all we need is a rough drawing and a materials list. Unfortunately, John Hall has moved up to Windsor. Lot Holdings is not here, so we'll have to communicate via email with him, because I was hoping he would come down to a meeting, but he's not in town anymore, so.
I could definitely put something together real quick.
Yeah. So, thank you very much.
You betcha.
All right, it was brought to our attention, there is some hopes of possibly another parking lot for Ehrlich Lake. I guess my recommendation at this point is, as we've discussed earlier, is our connectivity of our sidewalks is probably key at this point. With that, we can research options from there. I mean, the hardest part with this is we do have that 200-foot of railroad right away in there that really plays a big role into everything. So that's where we're hoping to look into possibly our connectivity of our sidewalks as our main focus. I think that's going to be our easiest place to find grants. We have a lot of areas throughout town. By updating that plan they did a couple years ago, I think we could really use it as a good fight for cost-wise to get sidewalk connectivity. And from there, as you can see, you get kids riding across grass, you connect all that stuff, it'd really be a good thing. And I was the same way. I asked the same question with the tap being new here, why we didn't do the other side, and that definitely makes sense after hearing it, so.
Yeah.
But now that's where we move forward and we finish that completion of that connection. I mean, the good thing is the railroad does have pads in there, so the railroad scope of the work is very limited in this second phase of that now, thank God. So it'd be more just acquiring the easements and doing the contract work, but I think that's where we bring it into a wide scope of the whole town to increase our chances of the grant process. And then from there, we kind of reevaluate maybe with the parking lot, how big of one we might need, if anything at all. One thing we threw around is just adding a few bump outs along Alice there, curb gutter, bump it out so you could have a few cars parked. I mean, one of our hardest complications is, of course, the classification of Alice. We are limited on access points, what we can have for parking along there. With it being that close to the railroad, we have issues with egress and all that too. So I think our main key at this point would be as a town to try and focus on our connectivity of our sidewalks, trails, and really focus on that, and then we can start evaluating uses after that.
So my concern was if we put in a sidewalk for that connectivity up to, I always just call it the Dollar General store, because that's where everybody walks to. And then we come back and can put a parking lot in there, then we're tearing up sidewalk that we put in. What are your thoughts on that?
With that, with the setback of the sidewalk, I think you could still put a driveway through without, you might have to just drop the sidewalk a little bit in that area. I don't see where you'd have to tear out a whole sidewalk. It may just be a driveway entrance. Because it's pretty, I mean, you have quite a bit of distance from the sidewalk to the curb line already that you could put a nice apron in there. But our thing would come down to just what we're looking for occupancy of that parking lot. And that would really tell us how we could lay it out or not lay it out.
Generally speaking, I see about anywhere from 6 to 10 vehicles in the area that like to fish over in there. And you can see as they're trying to get their gear out of their car, the kids are running around, they've got their little cooler and everything else. To me, it's a bit of a risk waiting to happen when they're trying to, with traffic is going by, it's 35 miles an hour there. That's my only concern, and it seems like people in Milliken like to come over to Ehrlich Lake.
Yeah, like I said, it's an option, but I think there's a lot of factors to evaluate with this. I mean, like I said, Keith has most of his main lines are in that area that would need to be required to be moved, lowered, or however we would go about it. It would be checking, you know, I mean, we may have drainage issues then of where our water is going to go from that parking lot. I mean, the good thing is we do have a drain box just down the road. So that's where, if it would be possible to do bump outs, that'd be our most cost-effective way, because you can still keep a drain line with that, with your curb and gutter, and you're still putting people off the road. I mean, with Alice being wide enough, if you give them a bump out, they're gonna have a little safer zone. Instead of doing a full-blown parking lot where you're changing water lines, you're adding material, I mean, it's a lot more cost-effective way to gain. I mean, you could probably gain 6 stalls there pretty easily between the water box and trees and not really have to move much of anything except change curb lines. So to me, that'd be a more feasible solution. And you're not running into encroachments of a railroad and stuff like that too.
The bump outs sound nice. What does the rest of the board think?
I like the idea.
Yeah, bump outs?
I mean, the bump outs are nice, but I'm also seeing a benefit to having parking area. It's a fairly good lake, and we've got these areas that we're trying to keep from having the water, so rather
We could always consider a picnic area up there. You
Yeah.
know,
On the
a
nor- on the-
concrete pad with a shade structure later.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I see there's essentially three, it's a few slides up, but there's that northwest, and then there's one more central just south of the lake, and then there's one way down by 46, Inez. They're bigger sections of
Well, you have
field
to-
that could be used.
Yeah, you have to be careful with the one down near 46 to the east.
Yeah.
That actually belongs to the HOA, and
Okay.
we are not doing anything with that.
Okay.
But the green triangle there up on the screen,
Mhm.
might be some opportunity there, so, for more of a picnic area. I think at that point, we'd want the Go Mill Committee to step in and give us a recommendation if it's something that we're looking at more of a picnic area. We could probably see how the bump outs work, maybe, and then see if traffic increases beyond the bump outs.
Yeah, there's, like on the satellite view, there's a vehicle there, and you could probably put, it looks like, I think you were saying 8 to 10 vehicles
Yeah, that's what
worth of bump
the
out.
hardest part about that with being a triangle and you're trying to put a parking lot in a triangle is
Right.
sometimes your layout. I mean, we need to think of driveway widths if you're gonna have means of access, entrance. you're
I
gonna
guess I'm
have-
referring more to the bump outs.
The bump outs?
if I'm looking
Yeah,
at that,
Just looking at close, I haven't measured anything. I drove
Right.
by it. I mean, like I said, this was given to us in a short term, so we tried to put the best we could together with the time we had. I would say you could get probably 6 in there. I mean, you could go farther down Alice with that. I mean, there's an option, if you had a sidewalk on the other side, you could use that as access too. I mean, there's a lot of options to this. It's just, I think, everybody needs to work together to come up with the best solution, is the best way
Yeah.
to do it.
I agree.
I think
agree.
it's worth digging into, but I'd like to see, how the bump outs, slant parking, what's feasible from our Alice being an arterial,
Exactly.
and then,
Yeah, and that, we really didn't have time to put all that stuff together and go through our code, because if we construct something, of course, we would want to construct it to our code. We can't expect other people to do it and not do it on our end. So a lot of that would be looking back at what our code is, how we can construct it or not construct it. I mean, we would want it to be a paved surface or a hard surface, just for ease of maintenance, keeping it clean, keeping it friendly. I mean, we have the ADA restrictions that'll come into a lot of that now too. I mean, we put a parking lot in there, we're guaranteed we have to have an ADA access spot. So I mean, there's a lot of factors that would come into that. So that's where everybody needs to kind of come up with what we want to start with, and then we can build from there.
That'd be a great place to put snow too, in the bump outs in the wintertime.
I just drive fast, it goes far.
Okay. Any other questions on the parking lot? Keith, I forgot to ask you, so if we move the small park over further in, away from the traffic, do you have any thoughts on the difficulty of making that park that is there right now, where the bathroom is, more of an adult with a, the tweens like someplace to go with shade structure, and they've got some picnic benches over there already, and maybe a fire pit, and cut down on some of the grass there? Is that difficult, or?
No, I think the most expensive part would probably be the shade structure.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know about the fire pit, if you'd need to get a burn permit every time, or what the restrictions are on that, but
A lot of concrete closer to the lake, and let's not set anything on fire. Maybe.
no, that would be the easy part. The hard part is moving the playground. And my concern with that is you have people pushing their baby carriages, further. So maybe make that a concrete path up to the playground. That way they're not struggling in the crusher fine with a baby cart.
Good thought. Okay, maybe if you could take our thoughts to the Go Mill Committee, and then Cheryl and I had talked about grants, the seeking of grants. So Cheryl?
Right, and one thing we have to think about too is the age of that playground. So as Keith said, whether it would still be in compliance with our insurance and so on, if we were to do something different, move it even. And grants, I think for a redoing that whole area. If we come up with a plan, an engineered plan, and apply for a large GOCO grant, I think the town would get the most bang for its buck that way. They're typically 60-40, I think it is, they run, as far as they would cover 60% of the cost and us 40, if I'm correct. But we'd have to investigate that.
Because I remember the Centennial Lake, when we did that playground, the equipment was 60,000, just over. It's not, it's not cheap. And then obviously we wouldn't need as an elaborate of a shade structure, because that's more of an amphitheater, but,
No, we'd have to look in the last large GOCO grant we applied for was for a skate park, so it's been a while. So we could work with the Go Mill Committee and put a plan together and start working on an application for their next go-around.
And do you have a date that they accept applications through for Go Mill?
I'll have to look. For GOCO, I have to look.
Perfect.
It's 4 times a year.
4 times a year, okay. Any other questions, concerns, or comments?
Mayor and trustees, we do have the chairman of the Go Mill Committee here in the audience. If you would have any questions for her. The last slide is actually the map from the 2015 gap analysis that we had done before the town applied for the last Safe Routes to School. And it shows you our disconnects in terms of getting children and families from here to there. I suggested to the committee recently that that's a good place to start, is with your basic infrastructure and connectivity. If you can't get to the parks, it's difficult to use whatever you put in the parks or open space. So that was a recent suggestion, and I know they just met last night, actually, I believe. And so maybe they can update you if you desire on what they're identifying as priorities or areas that they'd like to move into. So just wanted to let you know we had a representative.
Would you like to come up and chat with us, Sheila?
Thank you for the opportunity to come and share some of the things that we've talked about. Before I guess, mention the things that we're working on with Go Mill, that's the volunteer, I guess, aspect of trying to increase community awareness and then also opportunities for the public areas in the town of Milliken. I wanted to bring up, though, just some things that I've done, that I've noticed from the Parks Department and really highlight them here that I've seen just driving around. So as a Go Mill committee, we talked about, well, first a survey was sent out. Tammy, thank you for that. A survey was sent out to community members to get their feedback on what they would like to see in Milliken. And one of the top reasons that people move to a small town is because they love the connectedness. And it's hard to get that connectedness if you don't feel like there's somewhere to go to connect. And so that's what brought our family here to Milliken, and I know several others. And so Milliken has quite a few parks. And so our job is not to overhaul the parks and say this is garbage, we're going to start new. And so I wanted to highlight some of the things that I've seen just as a citizen and highlight those really quick. So we had talked about adding seating and at one of our meetings, and the very next day I walked around Centennial Lake, and the seating was already being put in by the Parks Department. And so some of these things that people have talked about in the survey that they would like, they're already things that are in the works. And so I really wanted to highlight and applaud the Parks Department, because I know it's been really hot and they've been working really hard. And it's not just this year that they've been doing this. Also the trail off of Green Street, there's been this consistent pond, and maybe we can use some of that water for our water problem. But the Parks Department, they put in drainage. So the trail, I drove by and I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then also Windmill Park looks really nice. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. So when in the survey, some of the feedback was that, of course, shade would be recommended and really awesome. People think about going outside when it starts becoming warmer, and so shade is definitely a top priority. We're looking at short term, such as structures, and of course structures last for the long term, but then there's also things like trees, and that's not instant shade. That's going to take time to grow, but it adds something that a simple shade structure wouldn't, right? It adds beauty, and a shade structure does too, but this is in a different way. They talked about benches. The dog park was a big element. The dog park actually brings in a lot of people from other communities, which is really nice also. A community garden was really high on the list. And then also, as well as that, is an ADA playground. But we want to go one step further and not just do an ADA playground, but do an inclusive playground. And the difference between that, ADA is people being able to access it with wheelchairs and maybe have some of the elements be lower level. An inclusive playground goes farther than that. An inclusive playground welcomes people of all capabilities to be able to be up on all heights of the play structure, and not just the children, but also their parents or their caregivers, their grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever it might be. And so it invites everybody to play together, not just come up and use the megaphone or spin a few things. So that's been a really big desire as well. So what I wanted to bring up really quick is that with the community survey, when we ask for their feedback, then they're looking at all of the parks, and not all of the parks in Milliken are actually town property. There's several that are owned by the HOA. And so when we got back some of the survey results, they were specific to the HOA playgrounds, which we can't do anything about. We're grateful that they're there. It's just that they're not on our spotlight of things to adjust or look at or add to. And so particularly in the new subdevelopments, what is it? Settlers Park. The two new littler playgrounds, they're adequate for like 2 and 5-year-olds over by the neighborhood that KQA is in. Anyway, so that's not on our radar, but definitely the trails to connect all of Milliken, and then also there's a trail for Milliken to go out towards Johnstown. It's along Green Street. And then the other side of it then is Johnstown connecting back to Milliken, so that can go to, what's this about? Okay, I won't even ask, but so Johnstown would have to do their part to come towards that trail to make it a Johnstown Milliken connected trail. So we are looking at trails. And let me see if there's anything else that I would add to this. Oh, this is my great opportunity to put a plug in. Anybody that would like to come join the Go Mill committee is more than welcome. We're shy about five members. So particularly if you love writing grants, we're going to be really working on grants, because some of these things, of course, we need grants to have the opportunity to pull it off. And so what questions do you have for me?
With regard to the HOA parks, I realize they're not on your guys' scope. Has anybody communicated to the HOAs the changes that their community would like to see?
Not yet, because we're a relatively new committee, and so there's things that we can work on grants for that are town-owned parks and areas first, and then that's a great idea. Eventually, that would be something that we could look at. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. And if you have a burning desire to join the Go Mill committee, just meet me after.
Thank you very much for the update. Very good. Okay, we have no other comments at this point. The next item on the board's agenda is an executive session pursuant to Section 24-6-402, subsection 4E of Colorado Revised Statutes for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategies for negotiations, and instructing negotiations with respect to the contract with Tim Singwall. I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to enter executive session.
Second.
Acting Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Grandquist,
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Trustee Trailer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ehrlich,
Yes.
and Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes while we wait for the room to clear, and then we'll go into.
Does anybody else want to listen?